Hello everyone and welcome to Cabin Fever Crochet. I'm Helene, back with a new tutorial and written pattern that's beginner friendly and fun for seasoned crocheters too. It's a gently shaped, semi-curved triangular shawl worked in an easy 2-row repeat after our initial setup rows with some tips and tricks along the way, and as always I take you through each segment step by step. The written pattern is already in my Etsy shop. Link is below in the drop-down description section. I've included metric conversions and a link back to this tutorial in case you need any extra visuals. This tutorial also has a timestamp in the drop-down description section too. I named it Metamorphosis because this shawl has truly been a transformation in the making, not only of many prototypes to achieve the shape that I wanted pictured in my mind. It really does take on what appears to me as a butterfly shape initially, and then as our work is complete, if you look closely as I trace my fingers around the shape, we have the 2 wings, the body running down the center, and the width at the bottom, and the 2 wings to the right really does look like a butterfly. Or if you just go with the top wing and then the bottom width and the top wing, that looks like a thunderbird to me. Or this circle at the top appears as an angel. So you wind up with this lovely representation of little butterflies fluttering all the way down your shawl from top to bottom. It's one of those dreamy feelings, kind of like looking at clouds. What you see might be something completely different from the person next to you, and it's all wonderful. So with all of that being said, I really hope you like it, and we'll get started with me creating our Metamorphosis shawl. Supplies: you need 1, 2, 3 stitch markers, and I'll show you where they go as we go along, and you can decide if you just need 1 or all 3. A row counter if you have one, or a pen and paper to keep track of our initial setup rows. There are 7 of them. Yes, 7, but they go by quickly, and it's to build up our increases and enough width to have 1 full repeat sequence and to be consistent with the written pattern as well. And your yarn of choice, lightweight, any really lightweight yarn. You could go into a fine number 1 or 2 DK, which is what I use, and up to a medium or an Aran weight. It's like a chunky medium. I think those would all work really well. And hook size, I do recommend going up 1 hook size than what either the ball band recommends or what you would usually use for the type of yarn that you choose. And that's going to help to relax the stitches a little bit, because these do tend to spring back into themselves a bit. However, if you are making this going into the cooler months, maybe you want those stitches closer together, and I do suggest blocking it. Highly recommend that at the end. And then I have this real easy way that I do mine, and that will make a big difference in how your finished piece looks and lays on your body. And so if you have a looser crocheting tension, you probably don't need to go up, but if you are a tight crocheter, I do recommend that. And I showed you what I made mine in, the Yarn Bee by Hobby Lobby. They're sugar wool cotton. It's 100%. The 2 I did, but they also have some very beautiful ones, mostly cotton, a little metallic, and they work out gorgeously too. You get a fair amount with this, and I only used 2 cakes for this full-size shawl. 5 ounces, 142 grams, 335 yards, 306 meters. The blue range that I used, that is Lucia Lagoon. Unfortunately discontinued. I didn't know that until I went in the store recently, and I was just pulling from my stash. And this other one here, that's still available, and that is Sprinkles on top. Oh, I just grabbed Lucia Lagoon again. Ha! there you go, sprinkles on top. I'm going to list the measurements on mine, starting from the wingspan, the top going across, the body, the center of it, the width of the body, and then the length from top to bottom, and the number of rows. Did I already say that? Well, anyway, so just to give you an idea, but I think 2 is a good place to start. If you're a very tiny petite person, then maybe 1 cake might be enough, and mine fits probably a large, extra large, and any sizes above the extra large, maybe 1 cake per each side above that. And if you're using an average 100-gram, 3.5-ounce skein, then go with the approximate equivalent of yardage for the DK, and approximately the same for the number for medium worsted that I'm about to show you. And the Lion Brand mandala would be really pretty too. This is the colorway Happy. Let's all get happy. And this one is Serene. One of my first prototypes. No, that shape didn't work out so special, but the color is, and I think that would be absolutely gorgeous. All right, so today I'm using Premier Anti-Pilling Everyday DK. You can start one of 2 ways. You can either make a slip knot and chain 3. Okay. Slip stitch to the 3rd chain from the hook, which is your very beginning chain, and you will create a ring. I put my finger right at the base of where I'm going to slip stitch into that first chain there to keep that little hole because it's easy to lose it. And then you would chain up 3 as your first double crochet, and then place 8 double crochets all into that little ring, that little circle. Okay, so that first chain 3 counts as a double crochet, and then plus 8 more will equal 9 double crochets total. Okay, and then you can close your circle very gently. Do not over tighten. I'm going to do a magic circle for this one. That's my favorite way of for most projects, not all. Alright, so fine, I just put the tail end over my fingers and wrap the working yarn from back around to front, make a little X and hold that with my other thumb. Go up underneath the tail end, okay, and grab that loop at the back, pull it up, pinch those off to hold them, bring it down, and then here's your tail end, so you can make it larger, smaller, however you need to. So you have some control on that, but don't over tighten that either because you need to fit your stitches into it. Okay, and then now chain 3 again. I would make those beginning chains a little bit looser so they don't shrink, squish down. And then again, same, put 8 double crochets all into that circle. Again, now gently close that, and do you see how my tail end is looped around? I leave it like that, looped around that circle, and that helps to keep it from pulling out. You should have a total of 9 stitches now, including your beginning chain 3. And that completes row 1 on the right side of the work. So now for row 2, chain 3, and keep those beginning chains nice full stitches, turn, Skip that first beginning double crochet and into the next. We're going to place a V-stitch all into that same stitch, which consists of a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. Now chain 2 again, skip the next 2 double crochets, and in the next, which is our 5th double crochet, that is our center point, we will place a V-stitch increase, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet back into that same stitch, chain 1, and double crochet. Now take one of your stitch markers and place that into that second middle double crochet of the shell increase we just made. Chain 2 again, skip the next 2 double crochets, and into the next place your last V-stitch, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet all into that second to last stitch, and in the last, into the top of your chain 3, 1, 2, 3, third chain up, and that on this initial couple of rows, that bottom chain might get squished down in there, so just that very top chain, don't accidentally work into the double crochet, but finish that just with 1 double crochet, working into the front and back loop of that chain. Alright, row 2 is complete, and at this point, if you want, you can cinch your center down a little bit more. Okay, I just don't like to over tighten that at first, and if it separates a little, that's okay, because I will cinch that down, shore that up at the end when I sew my end in anyway, but that just gives a little breathing room for those stitches to relax a bit. And now for row 3, back onto the right side of the work, we're going to chain 4. Your first 3 chains counts as your first double crochet plus a chain 1 space, and turn and work a shell into the beginning V-stitch, which are 5 double crochets all into that V-stitch. Okay. Chain 2. Now we're going to work a shell increase across that center V-stitch increase. Okay. There's your middle double crochet into the V-stitch to the right of that center double crochet. Place 4 double crochets into that V-stitch. One double crochet into that second middle double crochet, and 4 double crochets into the V-stitch to the left of center. Stitch marker goes into that 5th middle double crochet of the V-stitch increase we just made. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then you should have then 4 double crochets on the other side of that. Now chain 2 and shell into your last V-stitch, which are your 5 double crochet, Okay, chain 1, and now double crochet in the top of your turning, chain 3, your 1, 2, 3, third chain up. So now you have your double crochet and your chain 1 space at the end of row 3. Alright, so you should have on row 3 2 shells and a shell increase. Now for row 4, chain 3 and turn. Okay, so this is our V-stitch row. V-stitch, even numbered rows have a chain 3 at the beginning. Okay. And let's see, now we're going to, okay, so that's our first double crochet. Now place a V-stitch into that beginning chain 1 space in between your double crochet and your first shell. All right, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, chain 2 again, and place a single crochet into that 1, 2, 3 third middle double crochet of your shell, chain 2, and now we're going to place what will be an increase into this chain 2 space. Work another V-stitch, and this is what helps give a little bit extra body width. Okay, so your V-stitch, double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet into that next chain 2 space in between the first shell and your middle shell increase. Chain 2 again, and you jump over into that center marked double crochet and work a V-stitch increase. Your double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet all into that center stitch. Stitch marker back into that middle second double crochet of the V-stitch increase just made. Now chain 2 again, and into that next chain 2 space, skip all of the rest of your center shell, place another V-stitch, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, and now if you want to mark these 2 V-stitches, that's where your second and your third stitch markers will go. But as you start to work and your work grows, you will know when you get to that point to place your next V-stitch. It's going to make more sense as we go along, but that is just an extra visual in case you need that, just so you don't accidentally skip over it. Okay, now to finish up row 4, chain 2, and again into that third middle double crochet of the last shell, single crochet, now chain 2, and into that end chain 1 space between your chain 3 and your last shell, place your last V-stitch. And no chain 1 at the end, that is only on our shell rows, so you just double crochet right into that third chain up, and if you need to slide that V-stitch over a little, you can certainly do that. Okay. Alright, so that completes row 4 on the wrong side. See, we're getting some nice width here. The more your work grows, the more pronounced that center triangular V is going to be, and the smaller your shawl is, the more curved the bottom is going to be. It's going to retain that curved shape, and again, the larger it is, the more fullness you get, so that will be more pronounced. But I have two really easy finishing rows that help to just spread that fullness out a little bit to the sides, and then the blocking is where the magic comes in, where it really helps to lock that in. Okay. All right, so now for row 5, see, we're getting there. Chain 4 again as your first double crochet and your chain 1 space. Go right into that beginning V-stitch and place a shell, your 5 double crochets. Pretty color blue, huh? What's that? That's called porcelain blue. Yes, I don't think I told you that. Well, now you know. All right, we have our shell, chain 2. Now single crochet in that next single crochet, chain 2, shell into the next V-stitch. Leave the stitch marker in if you like. And move that V-stitch up every other row on every V-stitch row if you want. Okay. Chain 2 again. Jump over to that V-stitch increase and work your shell increase across that. Okay, again with 4 double crochets into that V-stitch to the right of center. That's 4. 1 double crochet into that center double crochet. You can put your stitch marker back in now if you like, or wait until you finish your shell, and then 4 double crochet into the V-stitch to the left of your center. Chain 2 and jump over to your next V-stitch, work another shell, chain 2, single crochet in the next single crochet, chain 2, shell in the last V-stitch. Okay, we're on a shell row, so we chain 1 after the shell and double crochet in the top of your turning chain 3. There we go. At the end of row 5. And now you can see it's taking on that butterfly shape. Looks like one to me anyway. Now moving on to row 6, our wrong side row, and this will start a repeat sequence. Chain 3 and turn, V-stitch into that beginning chain 1 space, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, chain 2, single crochet into that third middle double crochet of your beginning shell, chain 2. Now this time V-stitch into the next single crochet. So you see you have 2 single crochets, one stacked on top of each other. That's where you V-stitch. chain 2, single crochet again in that third middle double crochet of the next shell, chain 2, and here we are with that chain 2 space just before your center shell increase, and that is where we place our new V-stitch. Move your stitch marker up from the previous V-stitch row into this new V-stitch, chain 2, jump over to your center double crochet of that V-stitch, or excuse me, of the center shell increase. That's your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th double crochet, and work a V-stitch increase with your double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet, moving your stitch marker into that second middle double crochet of the V-stitch increase just made, chain 2 again, and now work your new V-stitch into that chain 2 space left of the center shell increase. Okay, chain 2, single crochet into the third middle double crochet of your next shell. Again, you can move your stitch marker into this new V-stitch. Okay. Chain 2 again, and V-stitch into the next single crochet where you have those 2, 1, 2 stacked on top of each other. That little dip, that scallop dip in between your shells. Chain 2, single crochet into the third middle double crochet of your last shell, chain 2, V-stitch into that end chain 1 space. Sorry for the tick 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 of my stitch markers, can't help that on this surface. And then finish your last row 6 with a double crochet in the top of the third chain up into the front and back loops of that chain always. Here we go. We're the right side row now, row 7, odd number, so it's a shell row. We do 4 chains for that double crochet and chain 1 space, and shell into the beginning V-stitch, excuse me, I start getting hoarse after a while from talking. Alright, chain 2, single crochet in the next single crochet, so those are our 2 stacked single crochets now, chain 2, shell into the next V-stitch, chain 2, single crochet in the next single crochet, chain 2, shell into the next V-stitch, which is the last V-stitch before the center. You can leave that stitch marker in until your next V-stitch row if you want. chain 2, and now this is where we jump over and work our shell increase across the center V-stitch increase with our 4 double crochet to the right of that center double crochet into that V-stitch. There's 4. 1 double crochet into that center marked V-stitch. Stitch marker, move that back up into this row, and 4 double crochet into the V-stitch to the left of center. Chain 2, shell into the next V-stitch, chain 2, single crochet in the next single crochet. There are your 2 stacked single crochets again. Chain 2, shell into the next V-stitch, chain 2, single crochet in that last single crochet, chain 2, shell into the last V-stitch, chain 1, and double crochet in that 3rd chain up. Okay, that completes row 7. Row 8, the first of our 2 repeat rows. Chain 3 and turn. We're on the wrong side again. V-stitch in that beginning chain 1 space. Chain 2. Single crochet in that 3rd middle double crochet of the beginning shell. Chain 2. V-stitch into the next single crochet in between your shells where you have 2 stacked single crochets. There goes your V-stitch. Chain 2 and single crochet into that 3rd middle double crochet of the next shell, and that is your repeat. Chain 2, V-stitch into the next single crochet, chain, finish the V-stitch, chain 2, single crochet into that 3rd middle double crochet of the next shell, and that is what you work all the way up to your center shell increase. Chain 2, then V-stitch into this next chain 2 space in between the shell you just worked into and your center shell. Chain 2, and now jump over to that middle, that 5th marked double crochet of the shell increase. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Work a V-stitch increase, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet, stitch marker, moved up into this new row, into that second middle double crochet of the shell increase, chain 2, and now in the chain 2 space to the left of your center V-stitch increase, place another V-stitch. Chain 2, and now your repeat sequence, single crochet into the middle, third double crochet of the next shell, chain 2, V-stitch into the next single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into that third middle double crochet of the next shell, and you repeat that on up to the top, chain 2, V-stitch into the next single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the third double crochet of your last shell, chain 2, and V-stitch into that end, chain 1 space, and to finish off row 8, don't chain like I almost did, and double crochet into that third chain up. Okay, and now for our second row of our 2-row repeat will be row 9, right side row, that's our shell row, chain 4, turn your work, shell into that beginning V-stitch, chain 2, single crochet in the next single crochet, chain 2, shell in the next V-stitch, okay, and that is your repeat up to your center V-stitch increase. Now hit the pause button. I'll meet you at that center point, and when you get there, you then chain 2, and now work your shell increase across your V-stitch increase, 4 double crochet in that V-stitch to the right of center, okay, 1 double crochet in that center double crochet, stitch marker back in that 5th middle double crochet of your shell increase, and 4 double crochet in that V-stitch to the left of center, just the same as what we've been doing. And I just realized I did forget to move my V-stitch stitch marker back in, so I can do that now on both sides if you want to. And again, finished our shell increase, so chain 2 and skip over, work into the next V-stitch with another shell. Chain 2, single crochet in the next single crochet, or you repeat up to the top with your chain 2, V-stitch, or excuse me, shell into the next V-stitch, repeat that on up to the top, working your last shell into the last V-stitch, and since it's the shell row, chain 1 this time, and then double crochet, and that third chain up at the end. So those are our 2-row repeats, 8 and 9, and you repeat those over and over until you get to your desired size. And remember, when you block this, your work is going to relax and your stitches will be a little bit more open, so your work will expand in both width and length a little bit. And you can just work these 2 rows and that's it. They're perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. You absolutely do not have to work the 2 finishing rows unless you want to. And that will also maybe depend on the size of your shawl, because the larger it is, the more pronounced that V is going to be, the more fullness you will have. So the last 2 rows is just a very simple little decrease to where it helps to push that fullness out to the sides a little bit just by narrowing that space. So I will show you that now. Oh, and also, and on the final row, I just do a slight decrease at the top, so there's a little bit more stability on that edge in case you do want to add fringe or maybe a little tassel. For row 10, you begin just like you did with row 8, and you work that all the way down to the very last stitch or set before your center increase, and that's where we make the little change. So I will meet you there. And make sure you add that last V-stitch in the chain 1 space before the center shell. Then you chain 1 this time instead of 2. And then in that 5th middle double crochet, place just a regular V-stitch this time. Double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. Your stitch marker back in to your new regular V-stitch, and then you chain 1 this time. Okay, so you chained 1 before, you chain 1 after, and then you go right into that chain 2 space and work your next V-stitch, and then you continue the pattern just as usual as you work all the way up to the top. Okay, and you see how mine is curling a little bit, and that is because I do not have enough growth of my shawl yet at this stage to create more fullness in the center. Like I said, the larger your shawl is, the more fullness you're going to have, but you will still have some even for a size small or medium. Then go ahead and just chain 2 and continue right back into pattern and finish this row just as you have been doing. Now for the final finishing row 11, instead of chaining 4 for the shell row, chain 1 instead, does not count as a stitch, and single crochet in that beginning double crochet. Single crochet, chain 1, and now work your shell into that beginning V-stitch. And continue working the shell row as usual as you have been doing on row 9. And I will meet you after you've worked your last shell into that last V-stitch to the right of your center V-stitch. Okay? And here I am. Our final finishing row, finish the last shell into the last V-stitch before the center. I already took out my stitch marker. Chain 1 now before and after the center again on this row as well, and in that center V-stitch place either 5 or 7 double crochets, and that will vary on your size of shawl. So if you place 5 and then you chain 1 and then work your next regular shell with the 5 double crochet into the next V-stitch, and you find that your work, maybe it's curling a little bit, So that's saying, okay, there are not enough stitches there. So you can put in 7 if you want, or if you want to have that extra little point and fullness at the bottom, you can put in 7 there. Okay, chain 1, still chain 1, and then go on back into pattern, working all the way to the top just as you have been for row 9, and I will meet you after finishing that last shell in the last V-stitch. Okay, here we go, finishing up my last shell on that final row. And if you haven't guessed it already, easy, chain 1, and now this time all you do is single crochet into the top of that 3rd chain up. Then work a little slip stitch into that very same 3rd chain up, and that's it. And that just gives you that little extra curve, brings it off to the side. Then you can do your chain 1 to lock it in, cut your yarn, and then when you sew in your ends, just try to tuck that as smoothly as possible to the back. And that also mirrors a little more of the other side where we had that beginning chain 1 anyway. The slip stitch just gives that little bit of extra. So see how at the top here, it just closes that up just a little bit and gives a nice finishing edge that's a little more stable too. So now let's go down to my blocking studio, otherwise known as my kitchen, and I'll show you how I block this, showing 2 different methods and which one worked out best with side-by-side comparisons at the end, with my ultimate goal of taking that fullness going down the center point and pushing it out towards the sides to give more fullness going around your body while softening that bottom edge at the same time. All right, hopefully this is a good shot and you can see it well. I just laid it down. I haven't smoothed it out or anything, so you can see it's more narrow, kind of curves up a little bit in the center, and it's more pointy at the bottom. Right here is my center. And if you need to, you can just shift your shells over a little bit just so they're centered. You can take a look at those too and see, depending on how, when you put your double crochets in, if some shifted over more to one side or the other. But mostly just want to show you a simple way of blocking this, that it will relax the fibers, open them up, make it a little more open and lacy, and you can separate the stitches as much or as little as you want to, but it's going to take the fullness from the center, push it out to the sides, and then we're going to smooth it from the center out. And so when you set it on your surface, any flat surface will do. If you have a long counter, that works, that's great. If not, you could put it on your bed, even the floor if you want to, or like put a large beach towel or something underneath your fabrics. Keep it clean and something that you can attach it to, whether you want to pin it. You can do that if you have blocking mats, or you can just do without and just use water. I'm going to use a lukewarm water in a spray bottle. Okay, but first set your piece down on whatever surface you're using. The main thing is having your shells aligned, coming right down the center. There's a moth there. All right, and then just give it a good spritz. And if it's very warm in your house, then you might need to go over it a couple of times. And you can also use, instead rather, an iron. Put it on steam. If you have a steam iron, set it to the appropriate setting for your fiber, but keep into consideration if there's any synthetics, any metallic filament, something that is more delicate. You don't want that to melt, so you can go down a setting for that, or whatever setting is appropriate, and put it on steam and just hold it about 8 to 10 inches above, and then you can just go mist it section by section. And then once you have it wet, just very gently on the surface, because especially if you're working with a natural fiber, particularly with this number 3 DK It will flatten out very easily if I press on it. So I want to keep that pretty texture of my stitches, and just by wetting it and from the absorption of the water and the weight, it's already flattening a little bit. And to get this into the shape, to round out the bottom a little bit and give you more fullness coming down the sides, go from the center out. And I'm starting at the bottom and working my way up. And it's already naturally doing that because I did at the beginning, and I gave it just a little bit of that shaping already. So I don't need to do a whole lot, and then you just then work your way from the top out and down, and just gently pat, 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 and bringing it down as I go. So once you have the general shape, then you can just kind of fiddle with it a little bit more. Again, however open or together you want, and then this just really makes the stitches pop, gives a because they're more relaxed, gives a little bit of separation between the main body of the work and the border. And then when I go along the border, I just gently put my finger into the chain 3s in between each shell. Give them a little tap tap just so those are nice and separated and looking good too, and even going across. And then when you go out and to the sides, you're pushing that fullness up and out. And then if you have self-striping like I do, then I will stand and go in different positions and just make sure everything's looking pretty lined up. And then once you are satisfied with that, how it looks, then you just leave it alone. Set it, forget it, and let it dry. Let it dry completely and done. So the whole thing just takes me maybe 10 minutes. And if you choose not to pin your work down, once the work dries, there will be a certain amount that will shrink back into itself, not completely as it was before blocking, and also depending on the fiber by how much. If you choose not to pin your work, just know that a certain amount may likely spring back, draw back onto itself a little bit once it's dried, so you will lose some of the openness that you have when it is laying flat on the table or whatever surface. And also depending on the type of fiber, how porous it is, how much bounce and twist the fiber has to it, all have varying effects on how your work is when it's blocked and what method that you use too. And just as I had thought might happen, being this is 100% cotton, it indeed drew back unto itself once it was completely dried, giving that traditional triangular shape, which is just fine, but I wanted to see how far I could go, what I could do with this. So I pulled out my blocking mats and pins, reblocked it a little bit, didn't take much at all this time, and I just let it set, let it dry, and it really made a difference and held its shape. And here you go, the side-by-side comparisons. On the left is my first go round, and on the right you can see how much fuller it is along the sides going around the body, and just gives a little bit of a gentle softening and curve shape to the bottom as well. So you get a little bit of the best of both worlds and 2 ways to finish it. Okay everyone, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed making this. Please let me know what you made yours in, how it turned out, and if you'd like to post a picture in my community tab page, that would be great. I always love seeing your work, what you did with my little creation so very much, and I appreciate you even more. Take good care, thank you, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye for now.